There's a lot of hype around the Florida State football program. Is it warranted?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Back into Locked On Seminoles. I am Brian Smith. Happy Monday to everybody out there. Hope all is well. Please like and subscribe to this podcast, rate and review. You can find this podcast wherever you get your pods and on YouTube. Today, we're going to break down the hype that's surrounding Florida State right now, the high energy that Mike Norvell has, even more than normal, the players that are talking after the practices, and quite frankly, the overall buzz and what it leads to in terms of the expectations. That is here today on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down and the sports stop just for a little bit. This summer, FanDuel is still hooking up all its customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So here's the overview backdrop. I always listen to the press conferences for different colleges to see if you can pick up on anything beyond just the coach speak that's out there. And I found it a little bit more refreshing today than normal with Norvell and some of the other guys that I caught up with on several different press conferences. Took some time. And it was an interesting piece because, well, everybody has to give some generic answers to some big box questions. That's fine. It was very clear that the leadership factor, the players that Mike had picked to come up to the microphone, the way they spoke, it was generic in general for a lot of other schools that I've looked at this stuff, by the way. But the Florida State players were pretty darn honest, talking about trying to help some of the younger guys with the playbook, helping each other. I was surprised at how much there was. And it, if possible, has raised my own expectations for how Florida State could be this year. Because that's stuff that you can't fix. You can't force. It does not work. You can ask players to hang out. You can ask players to work on the playbook. You can ask players to work on concepts together. They have to do it on their own for it to work. And here's the other part. It was a bunch of different guys. It wasn't like one player. It wasn't just Tofi. It wasn't anybody that came up to the mic. Azariah, any of those guys. Could be that. But they said like an offensive guy will go talk to a defensive guy about how would you cover this? What do you think is going to happen? These are unusual things. You don't see that at every press conference and consistently at these. I don't care which school it is, Florida State included. It's pretty unusual. And it kept coming up in some way, shape, or form. You could read between the lines. The other part to it, by the way, these are mostly veterans here. Hakeem, I think, is the youngest player that has spoken. He's a sophomore this fall. I think Florida State, they're really comfortable with who they are now as a program. Last year, obviously, was a breakthrough, but I didn't expect it to be quite like this in terms of the personnel. I expected, quite frankly, again, not only Norvell with a lot of coach speak, but players, they're coached on what not to say. SIDs are always paranoid that somebody's going to say something, the coach is going to get mad at them. Hey, how come they said this? Or mad at their staff for not getting a guy to say something. There weren't all layup questions there. How so-and-so doing can go a lot of directions. Everything was positive, and I was just surprised by that. So with that in mind, a couple of points on just a few of the press conferences in general. Number one, just look at it. Forget what he said. And somebody brought this question up in his press conference. Hakeem, when he got to the Noles, was such a naturally gifted athlete. I don't think he really lifted that much at Stranahan High School down in Fort Lauderdale. He is completely a different dude. He admitted it, like the body language when I forget the reporter that asked him, I wish I could give him credit, but he said, just over a year, I'm completely different, etc. And you can tell there's a confidence and an exuberance about it. Hey, I've accomplished something here. I didn't have to do this in high school. But what he had to say, it was true. I saw him play in high school. Like he runs by guys, even though he's 6'3", 200 pounds. Like he's a different kind of cat. But he admits that he had to get better by the way he said it, took ownership in typical Norvell fashion, and he's better for it. He admits it. He didn't backtrack, didn't look back on it. And so Feely, same kind of deal. I mean, that's a guy that's a senior player, same deal. Like, hey, it's my time. Yeah, I'm ready. He wants the carries, but he still talked up his teammates. Everybody's taking ownership. This is the part of culture that leads me to believe that Florida State's not only going to be good this year and moving forward, but has a chance to be, quite honestly, really dominant on the gridiron. If you don't have this kind of culture, I don't care which program it is, you're going to fail and have those moments against lesser programs where you're like, man, we're way more talented than these guys. What's going on? There's not usually accountability in those situations. This is an example that Florida State is headed in the right direction. One last point before I move forward, and that's that Florida State has so many guys in this mindset now that I think even if they go in, a bad streak with some injuries, which happens almost every year at some point, there's going to be enough accountability and the older guys helping the younger players, like a Justin Cryer, for instance. They have enough players that have gotten a little bit of experience, but are getting helped along. There's going to be a smaller gap in the performance at that position. That's always what you worry about. The number one predictor is always injuries. That sucks, but it's true. And it's going to happen at some point this year, like every year. You're going to have a spot that's down. Last year it was receiver at points. Sometimes it was O-line. It's such, they found a way. I expect even more results in that regard based on what I'm hearing. And of course, the recruiting in the portal, the way they've used it this season than I did in the season they went undefeated. Now, whether or not they finish undefeated again, you still got to earn that. But Florida State is in a position right now to say, hey, we're a playoff team. Chemistry's there. They got talent. They've got experience. There's really no reason to think that they're not. So Florida State is in a good position. And to be honest with you, even if you're a Florida State fan, did you really think there was going to be this much positivity around the program? If you don't believe me, go watch the videos on the Florida State athletic side. These guys are excited for fall camp. A lot of guys hate fall camp. I mean, the off-the-record conversations usually aren't that good. They weren't faking it today. So coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the younger guys, Hakeem, KJ Sampson, some other guys that if Florida State is truly going to make it to the next level, how do they do that? Which guys are they? Do you have some opinions beyond my own? That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. Are you looking for that dream vacation this summer, but can't figure out how to do it because you're dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you get cash back on all of your purchases. So you can go spend more time making memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. It's an opportunity for you to go on the app and look for different opportunities. You get money back. You're going to get opportunities to shop things quickly. You're going to get things come directly to your door. Ibotta is a really cool app. It's free. All you have to do is download it from the App Store, the Google Play Store, and you get cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries, beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter where you're purchasing. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 off just for trying by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store, Google Play Store, and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta and the Google Play or App Store. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. Also, we have another opportunity for you as well. If you're trying to check out an opportunity to get a way to feel better about what you're eating, make it a little bit easier, fewer hassles, here's an opportunity for you right now. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and even Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitians approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you've always got an time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Which players do you think need to step up from the Noles that are either going into their sophomore year, maybe a redshirt freshman. Without looking at a list, now that's the easy way to do it, but without looking at a list, which say 3 to 6 players, use your own judgment, do you feel the Noles could really use help from? Doesn't have to be a starter, mind you, but somebody that if they make that next step, it changes football in terms of who he plays, changes football in terms of staying healthy because you got fewer guys taking a ton of snaps. Remember, if you're going to make a run in the playoffs now, you got to play, I think it's 16 games off the top of my head to win it. 15, 16 games, that's a lot. Coaches are going to have to cut snaps. So young guys are going to play. I talked about this a week or so ago. So in your mind, who is it? Here are mine. And if you want to comment on YouTube, I would appreciate it. And by all means, this is not an end-all, be-all. These are more idealistic. And there's some of the guys that, quite frankly, I think if they do come in and play and make an impact this fall, you're not only going to see them help the team, but you're going to see the Noles have a better chance in November to win rivalry games. You're going to see them have a chance to win the ACC title and go to the playoff. You just can't have enough guys that are able to play and make it easier on the guys that are in the starting lineup. So Hakeem Williams, I think, is the easiest pick at number 1. I imagine quite a few of you listening or watching this, that's what you're going with. Hakeem is, as I mentioned in the first segment of the show, a natural athlete that he can run unlike most guys his size. He's God-given. But now he's taken that step and he knows the offense better. He's been given the opportunity to speak almost immediately, ironically, at fall camp. Norvell wouldn't do that if he hadn't figured some things out with the playbook, how he's conditioning, academic. Like, he's not going to do it. So it's pretty clear that's a sign, hey, this guy's only a sophomore this fall, but we have confidence in what Hakeem can do. Great sign. Why else does it matter? Well, let's be honest. You're not going to replace Keon and Johnny just like that. They need guys to make it work in the passing game. Maybe it's a little more balanced this year. I think that's a safe assumption, losing 2 NFL receivers. But they also have to replace Bell. They're like, that's a really good flex tight end / H-back. They're looking for any way they can to get more size and explosiveness on the field. Hakeem's a guy that comes up to the podium as going into the sophomore year. Great sign. Number 2 for me, and you can take this any way you like, but I beat on the recruiting front, how much D-tackle recruiting should be evaluated differently, how more important it is than some other positions. Like linebacker, they need to do better in recruiting. I've talked about that too. But if you can give me one or the other, I'll take a D-tackle every time because there are just fewer of them. There are only so many guys that have the girth, the natural girth to weigh 280 and up. That's kind of like 280 is kind of like bottom end anymore. There's a few exceptions, but not many. How many guys can do that? KJ Sampson, the kid out of North Carolina they signed, he's got all the chances in the world here in fall camp to show that he should at least be third-team guy, maybe pushing for second-team reps. And Florida State's got quality talent at D-tackle. Don't get me wrong. But again, can't state it enough. Somebody's going to get hurt. Who's it going to be? When's it going to be? No idea. They must be ready because especially in these early season games when it's really hot and doke, when they go down to Miami to play, etc., you must rotate guys constantly. KJ needs to be ready. They got to have a 5th. They got to have a 6th guy. And I think he's 300 plus pounds, super highly recruited kid. If they can get him to come in and make, say, a consistent 10 to 15 reps per game kind of effort, that doesn't sound like a ton. It's a huge deal. Florida State needs big body guys to come off the field and suck oxygen. So the next guy comes in, though, he can't just be an average player. He needs to be really good. KJ, we've heard a little bit about through spring, talked about a little bit. That may be, because Hakeem's already been kind of thrown out there, he might be the guy that I'm most curious in hearing about by the end of fall camp. I really want to hear at the end. Like right now, it doesn't matter. I want to see what he's like towards the end of fall camp because big guys really hate fall camp. The heat in Tallahassee is terrible. I'm curious what his attitude's like, etc. If I get anything, I'll obviously report it. But if he's ready to go and there's no other injuries, especially beginning of the season, they've got a chance to get off and running. That would be a great group. Number 3, talk about him all the time, Cam Davis. They have to find a way to get him on the field, even if it's punt return, whatever. I don't know how they're going to do it. He's the true freshman. that's out of the Doherty program in Albany, Georgia. Really good football player, played quarterback for his high school team most of the time. He can play free safety, whatever, but he's going to be a running back for the Florida State Seminoles. And I know they've got players on the field, but running back, kind of just talking about injuries again, is arguably the most beat up position on the gridiron year to year. Doesn't matter which level you look at. If you have another power back like him, Rodell gets beat up, he might even be that guy pretty quick. He's 215, 220 in that range, about 5'10", 5'11", and just built incredible. So I'm curious to see how fast he assimilates. I talked to Osmond Crowman about this the other day. Like, they know that he's a really good football player, and they've known forever coming up in Little League. Everybody knew, etc. Crowman was talking about how they competed against each other, and it was always a lot of fun. There's a reason. Like, you have to separate him from a lot of other guys. And even as a freshman, he'll beat somebody around the corner and score. This is a big play athlete. So really it's about him just assimilating to the offense. And I know this sucks, but running backs, they're not normally good pass protectors at the beginning. If there's any question I have about Cam, same way I'd have for any other. Can he pass block? Cannot get your quarterback hit. That's the way it goes, but that's the guy I want to know about with that. The next one is a little bit of a cheat code. I don't care which guy it is. It's the position I'm more concerned about. Linebacker. Obviously not the deepest spot for the Noles, for anybody that follows Florida State closely. Is it Cryer? Is it Nicholson, etc.? There's been whispers about Cryer doing well, Nicholson doing well during different points of summer and into early camp. It's still too early for me to know. After about 3, maybe 4 full pad, let's go at it practices, I'll care more about it. It's just, can you tackle one-on-one is really what it is. This game today in college football is about who's in space and who makes the first guy miss. Then they try to make it a track meet. But if you tackle them right away, it doesn't work out that way. Nicholson and Cryer can really run, but at the same time, now it's scheme. Now it's all the little things. DJ Lundy and those guys got to coach them up. They got to help them. I've talked about that on this podcast too. But if it's Cryer, great. And I don't care if it's Nicholson, Cam Riley, the transfer from Auburn, you might as well throw him in there. At least one of those guys needs to not only be a starter, but another one probably needs to be the next guy off the bench, etc. There's a lot of ways to look at this. Lundy is pretty much the only guarantee. Florida State is thin at linebacker. There is no time to wait. One of these guys is going to have to step up immediately, if not two, pretty much from the get-go. That's very important. Finally, and it's just a fun thing, it's Jalen Lucas. He's not a freshman. He's not a sophomore, but he's the guy that is going to be looked at that way because he's the new gadget. And I'm not saying he's a gadget player, but Norvell is tremendous with play calling and moving guys around. Jalen transferred from Indiana University. He's originally from the state of Louisiana. And he's a speedster, 5'9", 170, 175, something like that. How are they going to use him? I still have no idea. I'm not sure Norvell completely knows the answer to that question either. And that's okay. Toys. How do you align them? How do you utilize them best in any given situation? He's listed as a running back, but I think there's a chance in certain games, maybe not for the season, you'll see Lucas as much out in the flat catching a pass or even lining up in the slot as he is either taking a fake in the hand for a handoff or running the ball. They're going to use him as a decoy because you have to put normal people on him outside or you're in trouble, meaning linebackers are not covering him. It's not happening. Even as good as DJ Lundy is, he's not going to run with Jalen Lucas consistently in space. That is a problem for teams. And I know he's not the biggest guy, so if you trip him up, he's a little more likely to go down. But can you get there to trip him up? Speed, electric speed. I think that's going to be a lot of fun for Florida State fans because, look, everybody enjoys seeing the guy zig and zag on a punt return or a slip screen or toss sweep or reverse. If they can get him to do that, again, you're taking carries off of Tofili, Rodell Williams, Sam Singleton, etc., whoever, because they have a ton of running back. They're not shy, but he's also going to be helpful when somebody gets banged up. That's a part of this process, and he can even help Florida State in the slot some because it's not the most experienced receiver group in terms of actual playing, not the year they are playing. They need more guys that have proven production. So he's going to have a chance to help Florida State in numerous ways. To wrap up the show today, I'm going to talk about all the expectations that I personally have with what I've seen based on the press conferences, a little bit of intel I got, and kind of look at Florida State from a big box perspective. Because I not only think Florida State has a really good chance to go to the playoffs this year, I think they've got a chance to make a run in the playoffs for the next several. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as it is, every summer, sports do slow down right before football camp, where we are right now. That's okay, though, because with FanDuel, you have an opportunity to get back in the action anytime you want, whenever you want. All you have to do is open up the app and dream up bets at any time that you are in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all its customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So what's your prediction for Florida State this year? Is it 9-3? Is it 12-0? Is it somewhere else? What is your prediction? Now I'll take it a step further. What is your prediction over the next, say, 3 seasons? We'll go a little further in a second, but next 3 seasons. Should they at least make one college football national championship game? Whatever it is, everybody has their own opinion. Here's how I look at it. Florida State now has the culture that I've talked about several times on this show, and I'm more hyped up about it right now than I am probably ever. And they've also obviously accrued more talent with the opportunities in the portal and through the high school and junior college ranks. They've done a great job of mixing and matching, probably better than anybody. So let's start with the bottom. Like in any given season, barring, like just dreadful amount of injuries at key spots, what's the bottom end Florida State should ever be? I say 9-3. That's not just this year, but that's moving forward. If you lose your first 2 quarterbacks to injury, okay, I get it. That's not going to happen. But outside of something like that, again, what's the bottom end? For me, it's 9-3, where everything goes wrong with the ball bouncing, field goal blocked at the end of a game, guy makes a miraculous play on a kickoff, something like you maybe lose one game you shouldn't, and then 2 games that you play against similar competition, you lose by a field goal. Those seasons can happen. But I think it's to the point now where Florida State really should not only just, for the most part, win 10 games or more every year. I think they're to the point where every game should be pretty much close during the regular season. Once you get to the playoff, the injuries and all that will be even more of a factor, unfortunately. But for the regular season, at minimum, I think Florida State should be a 10-win team almost every year. They have balance across the roster. There's no spot that I go, man, there's no way, man. They don't have enough depth there. They don't have a playmaker there, whatever. Like linebacker is probably their thinnest spot right now, but you still got Lundy, who's one of the best tacklers in college football, knows the offenses well that they're going to go up against. He's played against everybody in the ACC. He knows Florida, etc. He's played a ton of reps, and he's teaching the younger guys. That's a great situation. Florida State's pretty fortunate to have DJ back. They'd have been in a much different spot than they are right now if he wasn't. But again, that's the one spot you're like, man, maybe. Okay, receiver, maybe to a certain degree, but they got a ton of guys, got a ton of speed, got a ton of size. You got a guy like Hakeem Williams already coming up to the podium. You've got all this talent. So this year's just an example. It's only going to get better with the way they're recruiting, especially a receiver. They're killing at receiver. I don't think Florida State is in a position that they should lose more than 10 games. So here's my third and final question for this. And everybody has their opinion. I don't think there's really a right answer. Over the next 5 years, is it fair to assume Florida State should win at least one national title? I think it's certainly plausible. Why would you not think that with the way the program's culture is, recruiting, and the development? I think that's a goal for any program. If you can get to that point, then once you get to the playoff, like, you're a 4 seed, whatever it is, are you hot at the right time of year? And again, are you healthy? That one just never changes. I know that sucks, but that's the biggest thing in the world. Florida State's got all the other parts moving in the right direction. I did not think that Florida State would get to this point for another year. I thought it was going to be a year from now. I talked about that in the spring. I thought this season would be a little bit of a bridge year, but they've A, killed it in the portal. B, the culture is good enough to have like the press conferences and stuff. You can see it. The kids are actually enjoying working with each other, and they're not having to be forced to do so. That's not always the case at a lot of programs. Trust me, I've covered other teams. It can be pretty dicey, but the other part with this, is the opportunity for Florida State to do one other thing. Prove doubters wrong. There's still people out there when I'm talking about this season and moving on it's a 1 year deal. I don't think that's the case. I think Florida State's going to be good for the foreseeable future. Prove me wrong, but I think all the signs are there. If anybody thinks differently, again, feel free to comment, but it's going to be kind of hard for me to understand why they wouldn't be that team that has a really, really good run and has a chance to make the playoff every single year. So with that, please hit that like button and that subscribe, hit the rate and review sections, do anything that you can, please, to push this podcast. Really enjoy you being here and making this your first listen each and every day. You all be great. I'll talk to you again soon.